Fleet Admiral Crix stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the stars through the massive viewing window, his forearms crossed behind his back as he studied. The tactical display, the Zephyrian war fleet, stretched out before him like a deadly swarm of metal insects, 200 ships each, one capable of destroying entire planets. The Admiral's scaled skin gleamed under the bridge lights. His yellow eyes held the confidence of a warrior who had never lost a battle in 30 years of conquest. He had brought 50 worlds under Zahirian control. The humans would be number 51. A soft chime echoed through Thebridge communications officer. Vex returned toward the Admiral, her head tentacles twitching with nervousness. "Sir, we are receiving a priority transmission from the Vorak Coalition," she said. Crix's expression darkened at Vorak. "Were ancient beings who claimed to have watched the galaxy for thousands of years. They rarely spoke Tonyon, and when they did, their words were usually unwelcome. Put it through," he ordered. The main screen flickered to life. A figure appeared in the static-filled image. It was hard to make out details through the interference, but the voice was clear enough. It carried the weight of ages, deep and hollow like wind. "Through Empty Caves Fleet, Admiral Christo of the Zephyrian Empire," the voice began. "I am Elder Voran of the Vorhek Coalition. I bring you a warning." Crix's officers exchanged glances. The bridge fell quiet, except for the hum of ship systems. "We know of your plans. Totak the humans," the Elder continued. "Do not do this thing. The humans are not like other species you have conquered. They are dangerous in ways you cannot understand." The Admiral's jaw clicked in annoyance. "Explain yourself, Elder. Our intelligence shows the humans are weak. They have few ships and even fewer colonies numbers." "Do not tell the whole story," Foran replied. "We have observed many species across the galaxy. Most fight for territory. Some fight for resources, others fight for honor or glory. But humans fight for something else entirely. They fight for each other. All species claim loyalty to their own." Crixed with dismissal. "No," the Elder's voice grew more urgent. "You do not understand. When humans are threatened, they do not calculate odds or wake us. They do not retreat when outnumbered. They do not surrender when defeat seems certain. They beckon something else entirely." The transmission grew weaker, filled with more static. Varun's image flickered like a dying flame. "Listen to me carefully, Admiral. If you attack the humans, they will not let you flee. They will not accept your surrender. They will hunt you across every star system until they find every last one of your kind. We have seen this before in the old records. There was another species that made this mistake long ago. They no longer exist." Crix felt his temper rising. His species had not conquered half the galaxy by listening to the fears of old creatures hiding in the dark. The Vorachev, grown weak with age, he said coldly. "You see threats where none exist. Humans will fall like all the others." "Admir, please." Vorthan's voice was fading now. "I beg you to reconsider. Find another target. Leave the humans alone for your own survival." The transmission cut to static, then went dark. The bridge remained silent for several moments. Finally, navigation officer Stack spoke up. "Sir, should we alter course?" Crystal turned from the screen, his expression hard as stone. "No, we continue as planned. The Vork have been hiding in their shadows for too long. They have forgotten what it means to be warriors." He walked to the tactical display showing human space. It looked so small compared to the Zephyrian Empyrean 43 colonies scattered across 30 systems. Their largest fleet had maybe 60 ships, all outdated designs. "Look at this," he said to his officers. "The humans have been spacefaring for less than a century. They use primitive weapons and basic shields. Half their colonies have no military presence at all." His tactical officer Commander Urickson nodded. "Eager-live conquest should take no more than a few weeks." "Sir, perhaps less." "Exactly," Crixtal agreed. "The High Command chose this target because it would be easy a demonstration of power to keep the other species in line. The humans will serve as an example of what happens to those who resist the Empire." He pulled up the battle plan on the main display. Red arrow showed the attack routes. The first target was a small farming colony called New Austin, located near the edge of human space. "We hit New Austin first," he explained to his staff. "It has many mal defenses. and about 50,000 colonists. We capture it quickly, then broadcast the surrender demands to all human worlds. When they see how easily we took their people, they will give up without a fight. Other officers made sounds of agreement. It was a good plan proven in dozens of previous campaigns. What a Booth Vorak warning, Sir Communications Officer, Vexry, asked quietly. Crixdel's eyes narrowed. The Vorhak are relics from a bygone age. They speak of ancient records and old fears because they have forgotten how to act in the present. We are the Zepyrian Empire. We have conquered worlds that were older and stronger than humanity will ever be. He gestured toward the fleet. Display 200 of our finest warships against a handful of human patrol craft. The outcome is already decided. Deep in his quarters that night, Crixtel reviewed the intelligence reports on human military capabilities. Their ships were indeed primitive by Zepyrian standards. Chemical rockets instead of plasma drives, kinetic weapons instead of energy cannons. Their armor was simple metal alloys, not the advanced crystallinometries used by the Empire. But something in the cultural analysis reports gave him pause. The humans seemed to have an unusual attachment to their military history. They celebrated battles where their ancestors had fought against impossible odds. They told stories of small groups holding off much larger forces. They had something they called heroes, who died rather than surrender. Still, Crickle reasoned, every species had its myths and legends when faced with real overwhelming force. They all chose survival over glory. He dismissed the reports and went to sleep dreaming of another easy victory to add to his record. 3 days later, the Zepyrian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the new Austin system. The small human colony sat undefended before them. Just as intelligence had predicted, begin the attack. Admiral Crix ordered. He had no way of knowing that in 18 months he would be the last surviving member of his species' military command, desperately trying to hide in an abandoned system at the galaxy's edge, while human hunter ships closed in from all directions. The warning had been ignored. Now the lesson would begin. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. He nearly dropped his mug. Ash ran to the command center of New Austin Colony. The morning shift was already at their stations. Faces pale as they stared at their screens. What do we have? Jake asked his communications fike lieutenant. Amy Patterson looked up from her console, her hands shaking slightly. Sir, we have contacts dropping out of hyperspace at the system edge, lots of them. Jake moved to the main display. Red dots appeared on the tactical screen, like drops of blood. 1 dot, then 5, then 20. The numbers kept climbing. How many? He asked, still counting. Sir, at least 100, maybe more. Amy's voice was steady despite her fear. They're not responding to our hails. Jake had been a soldier before becoming a colony administrator. He had served in 3 different wars before tearing to New Austin. He knew what a fleet that size meant. Sound general quarters, he ordered. Get everyone to the shelters. Send an emergency broadcast to Earth Command. Tell them we're under attack. The colony had 50,000 people spread across a dozen settlements. They had never expected to need the underground bunkers that had been built into every town. Jake had thought they were a waste of money. Now he was grateful for them. Amy worked quickly at her station. Message sent, sir, but it will take 3 days to reach the nearest human fleet. Then we hold for 3 days. Jake said simply. The alien ships moved through the system like a fakisa. Dark-Tide. Jake watched them approach on the sensors. These were not exploration vessels or trading ships. These were warships built for one purpose only. All civilian transports begin evacuation to the bunkers. He broadcast across the colony network. This is not a drill. All military personnel report to defensive positions. Austin was not a military world, but like all human colonies, it had basic defenses. Orbital platforms with missile launchers, ground-based laser batteries. Asmal patrol fleet of 6 ships. Jake knew it would not be enough, but he also knew they would try anyway. The attack began. 2 hours later, the alien ships opened fire from long range, their weapons lighting up space like deadly fireworks. The orbital platforms fired back their missiles, streaking toward the enemy fleet. Most of the missiles were shot down, but a few got through. Jake watched 2 alien ships explode on his screen. It was not much, but it was something, sir. They're launching. Fighters, Amy reported, hundreds of them. The alien fighter craft swarmed toward the colony like angry insects. Jake's 6 patrol ships moved to intercept them. The battle was brief and violent. 3 of the patrol ships were destroyed in the first few minutes, but something strange happened. Instead of running, the remaining human ships kept fighting. They used tactics that seemed to confuse Thelians. They hid behind asteroids and struck without warning. They rammed damaged alien fighters rather than retreating. Why aren't they pulling back? One of Jake's officers asked. They're outnumbered 20 to 1. Because they're human. Jake said quietly, we don't run when our people are threatened. The ground assault began at noon. Alien dropships landed near every settlement. Jake could hear the explosions through the command sense thick walls. The defensive laser batteries fired continuously, their beams cutting across the sky. Reports came in from across the colony. The aliens were good soldiers, but they seemed surprised by the human response. Instead of panicking, the colonists fought back with the very thing they had. Farmers used their heavy equipment as weapons, ramming alien vehicles with their tractors. Children, too young to fight, carried ammunition to the adult offenders. Old people, who could barely walk, served as spotters and coordinators. Sir, Settlement 7 is reporting success, Amy said with surprise in her voice. They've driven off the alien ground forces. How? Jake asked. The entire town worked together. Even the school kids were helping. They used the mining explosives from the quarry. Similar reports came in from other settlements. The aliens were winning, but they were paying a much higher price than expected. Every building had to be taken by force. Every street was defended. Deathless person. By evening, Jake knew the colony was lost. The aliens had too many ships and too many soldiers, but the humans had made them bleed for every meter of ground. The command center shook as alien soldiers broke through the outer defenses. Jake looked around at his remaining staff, 12 people who could have surrendered hours ago. It's been an honor, he told them. The blast doors exploded inward. Alien soldiers poured through the opening, their weapons ready. Jake reached head for his sidearm, but a stun blast dropped him before he could draw it. When he woke up, he was in an alien holding cell with several other prisoners. Dr. Lisa Hayes sat in the corner, her medical uniform torn and dirty. Sergeant Carl Brooks leaned against the wall, his arm in a makeshift sling. How long was I out? Jake asked. 6 hours. Lisa replied. They've taken about 50 of us for questioning. The cell door opened. 2 Leon guards entered, followed by a third who seemed to be an officer. The officer studied the humans with obvious curiosity. I am Commander Erickson, Hesed in accented, but clear English. You fought well for primitives. But why did you not surrender when defeat became certain? Dr. Hayes stood up slowly. Because you attacked our home, you hurt our people. All species defend their territory. The commander replied, but you fought past the point of reason. Your casualties were enormous. You don't understand, Lisa said. This isn't just about territory. These are our families, our friends, our neighbors. When you attack humans, you're not just fighting soldiers. You're fighting everyone who cares about the people you're trying to hurt. The alien commander expression showed confusion, but the tactical situation was hopeless. Continued resistance served no purpose. Sergeant Brooks laughed, a sound with no humor in it. You think this was resistance? This was just the warm-up. Wait until the real fleet gets here. Your nearest military forces are days away, the commander said. We will be long gone before they arrive. You don't get it. Brooks contended. Every human in the galaxy just became your enemy. We don't forget, don't forgive, and we sure as hell don't let people hurt our own and just fly away. The commander left without another word, but Jake could see uncertainty in his alien features. 3 hours later, Amy Patterson was brought to cell. She had managed to keep the communications equipment working until the very end. Did the message get through, Jake asked her. Amy smiled. Despite her bruises, every human fleet in the galaxy heard us. Sir Admiral Cole is already moving the 3rd Fleet this way. Captain Davis has Deep Space Squadron tracking the alien ships. And sir, what the message included? Everything full tactical analysis of their ships and weapons complete. Recordings of the battle. Every human commander now knows exactly what these aliens can do. Dr. Hayes nodded slowly. They wanted to make an example of us. Instead, they just taught every human in space how to fight them outside their cell. Alarm klaxons began to sound throughout the alien ship. Emergency announcements echoed through the corridors in the alien language. What's happening? Jake asked. The guards when they came to check on the prisoners. One of the guards looked nervous. Human ships have been detected at the system edge. Many human ships. Jake smiled for the first time since the attack began. That was fast. Told you we don't abandon our own. The guard's expression grew more worried. But our intelligence said your nearest fleet was 3 days away. Yeah, well, Jake said, your intelligence was wrong about a lot of things. Wait until you see what else we can do when we're real angry. The ship shuddered as weapons fire began outside. The real fight was just beginning. Admiral Susan Cole stood in the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the burning wreckage of New Austin Colony through the main screen. Alien fleet had left 6 hours ago, but the damage remained. Smoke still rose from the settlements below. Ma'am, we're receiving transmissions from the surface. Her communications officer reported survivors in the underground shelters. Thank God, Susan whispered. She had expected to find nothing but corpses. Get rescue teams down there immediately. Commander Ryan Walsh approached from the tactical station. His face was grim as he handed her a datapad. Admiral, you need to see this. The colonists managed to record everything before their communications went down. Susan read through the report. 50 colonists attacked by a fleet of 200 ships. The humans had destroyed 12 alien vessels and damaged dozens more before being overwhelmed. The casualty reports made her stomach turn. They fought like demons. Ryan said quietly, old people, kids, farmer, civilian fought, and now they expect us to just accept this. Susan replied, her voice cold as space. They think they can kill our people and sail away like nothing happened. She turned to address the bridge crew. Send a message to all ships. We're not here for a rescue mission anymore. We're here for justice. The human response fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Admiral Cole had 47 ships under her command, but they weren't arranged in normal battle formation. Instead, they spread out across the system in small groups. Sir, the alien fleet is moving toward the hyperspace jump point. The sensor operator announced. They're trying to leave the system. Let them go, Susan ordered, surprising her crew. Commander Walsh stepped closer. Admiral, we're not fighting a traditional battle. Ryan, this is something else now. Those aliens think they can hit us and run. They're about to learn. They're wrong. She activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships. This is Admiral Khalid. Enemy believes they have won a victory here. They believe they can return to their space and continue their lives as if nothing has happened. We're going to show them otherwise. The human ships moved with purpose. That seemed chaotic. To outside observers, half the fleet followed the alien ships at a distance. The other half scattered to different star systems, apparently at random. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had been preparing for this kind of war for decades without realizing it. Every human ship had long-range sensors. Every human colony had communication networks. Every human civilian had basic combat training. Within 24 hours, the galaxy's communication networks carried a message that chilled every species that heard it. It was broadcast on all frequencies in every known language. These are our dead. Admiral Cole's voice echoed across space. Images appeared with the words faces of the colonists who had died at New Austin. Children, parents, grandparents. Each picture showed a name and a brief description. Maria Santos, age 7, loved to draw pictures of spaceships. John Carter, age 63, retired teacher who volunteered at the colony school. Amy Chun, age 35, doctor who delivered 42 babies on New Austin. The list went on for hours. Every single person who had died was named and remembered. The message ended with a simple statement. We will have justice for each one. Fleet Admiral Crystal received the transmission aboard his flagship as they traveled through hyperspace. His officers gathered around the communication screen, listening to the human voices reading name after name. It's psychological warfare, his tactical officer suggested. They're trying to make us feel guilty, but Crix wasn't so sure. There was something in the human admiral's voice that he had never heard before. Not anger, which he understood, not hatred, which had seen in other conquered species. This was something colder, more final. Sir, we're receiving reports from our border worlds. His communications officer announced human ships have been spotted in 7 different systems. Invasion fleets? Crickle asked. No, sir, small groups, 3 ships here, 5 ships there. They're not attacking our worlds, they're just watching. The first real attack came 3 days later as a Pyrian supply convoy carrying food and medical supplies was intercepted by human ships near the Kepler Nebula, but instead of destroying the convoy, the humans did something strange. They boarded each ship and asked to see the crew manifests. Any Zephyrian who had participated in the New Austin attack was taken prisoner. The rest were allowed to leave, but not before their ships were marked with a special signal beacon. What are they doing? Commander Erickson asked as he studied the reports. They're hunting us. Crickle realized with growing dread. Not our empire, not our military, as the individuals who were at New Austin. More reports came in over the following days. Human ships appeared wherever Zurian vessels traveled. They didn't engage in large battles. Instead, they struck like predators, hitting isolated ships and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. Commander Ryan Walsh led a squadron of converted civilian ships that had been turned into stealth hunters. Former cargo haulers now carried military-grade sensors and weapons. Passenger liners had been retrofitted with extended life support for long-range missions. Target acquired, Hare reported to Admiral Cole. Zephyrian cruiser traveling alone through the Vega system. Remember the rules of engagement, Cole replied. We want prisoners who can tell us where the rest of their fleet issuing. The Zephyrian cruiser never saw the attack coming. Ryan's ships emerged from the asteroid belt like ghosts, their weapons powered and ready. The alien ship tried to run, but was quickly surrounded. Captain Pete Adams led the boarding party. He had been a diplomat before. Few were skilled in languages and alien psychology. Now he used those skills for a different purpose. We know you were at New Austin, he told the captured Zephyrian. Captain, we have sensor records of your ship in the battle. Your choice is simple. Tell us where Fleet Admiral Crisal is hiding, and you'll be treated according to galactic prisoner conventions. Refuse, and we'll leave you in the nearest airless moon. The Zephyrian captain looked confused, but we're at war. There are rules for how prisoners should be treated. Pete's expression remained cold. Those rules apply to civilized warfare between military forces. What you did at New Austin was not warfare. It was murder. You killed civilians, children, old people who had never held a weapon. We offered them surrender. The captain protested. After you started shooting, Pete replied, the time for surrender was before you attacked innocent people. Now you get to live with the consequences. Psychological pressure began to show results. Within weeks, Zephyrian crews started deserting their ships. At friendly ports, others mutinied against their officers, demanding to know why they were being hunted across the galaxy for following orders. Fleet Admiral Crix tried desperately to maintain control of his scattered fleet, but every day brought new reports of human attacks. His ships couldn't travel in groups without being detected. They couldn't travel alone without being captured. Sir, we're receiving communication requests from several alien governments, his communications officer reported. They want to discuss turning over any Zephyrian ships in their space. What? Crixel couldn't believe it. The humans have convinced them that harboring us is too dangerous. They're afraid of being targeted if they help us. The galactic community was indeed taking sides, but not the sides Crystalol had expected. Species that had feared the Zephyrian Empire for decades were now afraid of something else. They were afraid of what the humans might do to anyone who helped their enemies. The Varak Coalition sent another message. Ethos One broadcast openly across all networks. We warned you, Elder Varan's inscient voice echoed through space. We told you the humans were different. Now you see the truth. They do not fight like other species. They do not make war like other species. They have turned their entire civilization into A weapon pointed at your heart. Admiral Cole received regular reports from her scattered fleet. Human ships were now operating in over 30 star systems, tracking down individual Zephyrian vessels and their crews. Admiral Commander Walsh reported during their daily briefing, we've accounted for 60% of their original fleet. Most are recaptured or destroyed, and the other 40% running hiding. Some have tried to surrender to neutral worlds, but no one will take them. The whole galaxy knows what happens to anyone who helps them. Susan looked at the star charts, showing the locations of known Zephyrian ships, red dots scattered across hundreds of flight years, each one representing enemies who thought they could kill humans and escape justice. Time to tighten the net, she said. Send orders to all hunting groups. No more delays, no more mercy. Find every last one of them. The hunt was entering its final phase. The Zaprans were beginning to understand what the Vorthic Elder had tried to tell them. When you make an enemy of humanity, there's nowhere in the galaxy you can hide. 6 months had passed since the attack on New Austinon. The galaxy had changed. What everyone now called the human hunt had become the most talked about event in known space. Trade routes shifted to avoid areas where human hunter ships operated. Entire star systems went quiet when human vessels were detected nearby. Captain Rachel Davis stood on the bridge of her converted cargo ship, the Deep Tracker, studying sensor readings from the edge of the Horsehead Nebula. Her ship hadn't carried grain and manufactured goods between human colonies. Now it carried advanced tracking equipment and now weapons to take on a cruiser. Got something, Captain? Her sensor operator called out. Lieutenant Mike Torres had been a civilian electronics technician before the war. Now he could track a ship's hyperspace wake across 3 star systems. What do you have? Rachel asked. Faint energy signature, about 2 days old, matches the pattern from that Zephyrian destroyer we've been tracking. Rachel smiled grimly. The destroyer Cathor had been one of the ships that attacked New Austin. Its captain had personally led ground forces against the colony school. Now he was jumping from system to system, trying to find somewhere the humans couldn't follow. Plot the course, she ordered. Send the coordinates to Admiral Cole. Mark it as another confirmed sighting. The human fleet had changed dramatically over the past months. What started as a rescue mission had become something unprecedented in galactic history. Every human ship in space, military or civilian, had become part of the hunt. Cargo haulers carried long-range sensors. Passenger liners had been converted into mobile command centers. Even small private ships joined hunting groups, serving as scouts and communication relays. But the most dramatic change wasn't the human worlds themselves. Every colony had transformed into a military base. Children learned to read sensor displays alongside their regular schoolwork. Adults worked in weapons factories during the day and trained for combat at night. Admiral Susan Cole had established her command center on the human colony of Kepler Prime. The planet's entire industrial capacity now focused on building ships and weapons. The civilian government had voluntarily turned over control to the military. Admiral, we have the daily reports. Commander Ryan Walsh announced it as he entered her office. Susan looked up from the holographic display, showing ship positions across human space. Reddits marked confirmed Zephyrian locations. Yellow dots showed possible sightings. Green dots were human hunting groups. How many today? She asked. 7 more confirmed captures. The group led by Captain Davis found that destroyer we've been tracking. Captain Wilson's squadron cornered 3 fighters near the Centauri system. Prisoners, most of them are too scared to fight anymore. They surrender as soon as they see our ship. Susan nodded. The psychological warfare was working better than she had hoped. Word had spread through the Zephyrian fleet that humans didn't kill prisoners who cooperated, but those who resisted or tried to escape faced a different fate. What about Fleet Admiral Crixt? Sheesked. Still no confirmed sighting. Our intelligence suggests he's hiding somewhere in the outer rim, but he's moving constantly. Susan studied the tactical display of the original 200 Zephyrian ships. Only 37 remained unaccounted for. Most of those were damaged and running on minimal power to avoid detection. Admiral Ryan continued. We're getting reports that some Zephyrian Cruiser trying to hide among refugee populations on neutral worlds, and the planetary governments are turning them over to us. No one wants to risk harboring them. This was perhaps the most remarkable development of the entire conflict. The human hunt had convinced most of the galaxy that helping the Saphirans was too dangerous. Even species that had traditionally remained neutral in galactic conflicts were actively cooperating with human forces. The Altarian Republic had opened their space to human patrol ships. The Centauran Trade Federation was sharing intelligence on Zahirian movements. The isolationist vegan empire had quietly passed along sensor data. Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, Fleet Admiral Crix sat in his darkened, ready room aboard his crippled flagship. Ship had been running on emergency power for 3 weeks, hiding in an abandoned system near the galactic rim. His mighty fleet was scattered to the winds. Most of his captains were dead or captured. The few ships that remained were too damaged to fight and too weak to run much further. Sir, his communications officer entered quietly. We are receiving a transmission from Commander Zachriel Crixtal. Looked up where Elizakriel commanded one of the last surviving destroyer groups. 8 ships that had been hiding in the void. Nebula put him through. The holographic image of his subordinate appeared, flickering with interference. Zachary's normally proud bearing was gone, replaced by the hunched posture of a defeated warrior. Admiral, we can stay hidden much longer. Our supplies are nearly gone. Half my ships can barely maintain life support. Have you found any safe harbor? Criddle Askethou. He already knew the answer. No, sir. Every world we approach turns us away. Humans have convinced the entire galaxy that helping us is suicide. Crickle closed his eyes. How had it come to this? 6 months ago he commanded the most feared fleet in Zephyrian history. Now he was reduced to begging for scraps of fuel from alien merchants who spat at the mention of his name. Sir, Zakel continued, some of my crew are talking about surrender. They think the humans I'd show mercy. If we turn ourselves in, the humans don't show mercy. Cricktol replied bitterly, they show justice, and their justice means we all pay for what happened at New Austin. After ending the transmission, Crixt walked to his private quarters and activated his personal Tata terminal. He pulled up the intelligence files on human military doctrine, searching for some weakness he might have missed. What found instead were reports that made his blood run cold. The humans weren't just hunting his fleet, they were preparing for something much larger. Every human world was now a fortress. Every human ship was armed for war. The entire species had transformed itself into a military machine, focused on one purpose, making sure that what happened at New Austin never happened again. Dr. Kevin Parker, a xenopsychologist working with Admiral Cole's staff, had spent months studying Zephyrian behavior patterns. His reports painted a picture of a species in complete psychological collapse. They can't understand what we're doing, explained to the Admiral during their weekly briefing. Their entire military doctrine is based on quick victories and negotiated settlements. They've never faced an enemy that refuses to accept any outcome except total victory. What about their civilians? Susan asked. Are they pressuring their government to make peace? That's the interesting part. Zephyrian society is highly militaristic. Their civilians expected their fleet to return home victorious with new slaves and resources. Instead, they're watching their most elite military units hunted to extinction. So their government is under pressure to end this. Yes, but they can't. Every time they try to negotiate, to give them the same answer: total surrender of everyone involved in the New Austin attack. No conditions, no negotiations. Susan nodded. The human position had been clear from the beginning. This wasn't a war that could be ended with treaties or compromises. It was a hunt that would continue until every person responsible for the massacre was captured or dead. General Ben Foster, the coordinator of Earth's defenses, joined the briefing via holographic link. His weathered face showed the strain of months of constant preparation. Admiral, we've received intelligence that suggests Crickle might be planning one final attack. He reported on what target Earth itself. Our sources suggest he thinks holding our homeworld hostage might finally force us to negotiate. Susan felt a cold smile across her face. Let him come. We've been preparing for this possibility since the hunt began, and indeed they had Earth's defenses had been strengthened beyond anything in human history. Every ship that could be spared from the hunt had returned to human space. Orbital weapons platforms surrounded the planet like a deadly shell. More importantly, the human fleet was no longer scattered across the galaxy. They had been quietly concentrating their forces, using the hunt as cover for the largest military buildup in human history. Captain Rachel Davis received new orders that same day. Her hunting group was to return to Earth immediately, along with dozens of others. Message was brief but clear: the prey is coming to us. Time to spring the trap. As human ships began their journey home, Fleet Admiral Krixt made his decision with only 23 ships remaining from his original fleet. He would make one last desperate gamble. If he could capture Earth, perhaps he could finally force the humans to negotiate. If not, at least he will die as a warrior rather than a hunted animal. He had no way of knowing that the humans had been waiting for exactly this decision. The trap had been set months ago. Now all they had to do is wait for him to walk into it. The final battle was about to begin. Fleet Admiral Krixt stared at Earth through the main screen of his damaged flagship. The blue and white planet hung in space like a jewel, looking peaceful and defenseless. His 23 remaining ships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, ready for the final gamble. Sir, we are detecting orbital platforms around the planet. His sensor officer reported nervously. How many? 12. Number 20, sir. The count keeps rising. There are hundreds of them. Krickle felt his confidence waver. Intelligence reports had suggested Earth's defenses were minimal. Most human ships were supposed to be scattered across the galaxy, still hunting his scattered fleet, sir. We're receiving a transmission from the planet. His communications officer announced. The main screen flickered and Admiral Susan Cole appeared. She sat calmly in what looked like a command center, her expression neutral but her eyes cold as ice. Fleet Admiral Krixt, she said. We've been expecting you, Admiral Cole. Krikstal replied, trying to sound confident. I offer you term surrender your home world, and I will spare your civilian population. Susan's expression didn't change. You seem to have misunderstood something, Admiral. You're not here to attack us. You're here to be captured. Before Krixt, his sensor officer screamed out a warning. Sir, ships decloaking all around us, hundreds of them. The space around Earth suddenly filled with human warships. They materialized from behind asteroids, emerged from the shadow of the moon, and dropped their stealth fields to reveal the largest fleet concentration human history. Captain Rachel Davis commanded a squadron of 50 converted cargo ships, all armed with the latest human weapons. Commander Ryan Walsh led the heavy cruisers that had been recalled from the hunt. Every human ship that could fly and fight was here waiting. You walked into our trap. Admiral Cole continued calmly. For 6 months we've been driving you toward this moment. Every time we let one of your ships escape, every time we left you a way out, we were hurting you here. Krixt looked around desperately. His 23 damaged ships were surrounded by over 300 human vessels. Escape was impossible. I demand to negotiate, he said, his voice cracking slightly. The time for negotiation was before you attacked New Austin. Susan replied, you had a choice then. You chose to kill our people. Now you live with the consequences. The battle lasted less than an hour. The Zephyrian ships were too damaged and outnumbered to offer effective resistance. One by one they were disabled by precise human fire. Their crews surrendered rather than face destruction. Krikst's flagship was thus to fall. Human boarding parties swarmed through its corridors, meeting little resistance from the demoralized crew. The Admiral himself was found in his ready room, staring at a picture of his home world. He was brought before Admiral Cole in person, his hands bound and his uniform torn. Burns covered half his face from the battle, and his proud bearing was completely gone. Why? Heast, as he stood before her, we offered surrender. We offered to pay for the damage. Why wouldn't you let us go? Susan stood up from her chair and walked to the large window overlooking Earth. The planet turned slowly below them, blue sheets and white clouds hiding the billions of people who lived there. Do you see that world, Admiral? She asked. Yes, a very person on that planet knows the name of every human who died at New Austin Maria Santos, age 7, John Carteridge, 63, Amy Chun, age 35. We remember all of them. She turned to face him. You didn't just attack a colony admiral. You didn't just capture territory or steal sources. You killed our families. You made it personal. But we are soldiers, Gixtal. Protested. We were following orders. This is how war has always been conducted, not with humans, Susan replied. When you attack our people, you don't just fight our military. You fight every human in the galaxy, every parent who imagines their child being hurt, every person who understands that today it was New Austin, but tomorrow it could be their home. She walked closer to him. That's why we never let you go. That's why we hunted you across hundreds of star systems. That's why your empire is finished, because you made the mistake of thinking humans are like other species. Crix stared at her in confusion. What happens to us now? You'll be tried for war crimes. Those who cooperate will be sent to prison colonies. Those who don't, she shrugged. Well, justice takes many forms. The trials lasted 3 months. Every surviving member of the Zephyrian fleet was brought before human courts. Their crimes were read aloud with the names and faces of their victims displayed for all to see. Most of the Zephyrians plead guilty and accept prison sentences. A few tried to claim they were just following orders. These were reminded that following illegal orders was also a crime under galactic law. Fleet Admiral Crix was the last to be tried. He stood before the judges, no longer the proud warrior who had dismissed the Vorak warning months ago. Was broken, defeated, a symbol of what happened to those who underestimate Edenin. Do you have anything to say before sentencing? The chief judge asked. Crix looked up at the gallery filled with human faces. I should have listened to the warning. He whispered. Scattered remnants of the Zephyrian Empire quickly signed peace treaties with every human world. Their government publicly apologized and agreed to pay reparations for generations. They also agreed to something unprecedented. They would never again engage in aggressive war against any species. The galaxy took notice. The Vorak Coalition updated their species database, adding new warnings about humanity. Other spacefaring races quietly reviewed their own military doctrines, making sure they contained no plans that might threaten human civilians. Elder Voran of the Vorthek sent a final message that was broadcast across all known worlds. Let the fate of Zephyrians be a lesson to all. His ancient voice echoed through space. Humans are a peaceful species. When left alone, they trade fairly, negotiate honestly, and honor their agreements. But when you threaten their families, when you hurt their children, when you make war upon their homes, they become something else entirely. They become implacable. They become relentless. They become justice itself, hunting across the stars until every wrong is made right. 1 year after the attack on New Austin, Colonel Jake Morrison stood in the rebuilt Colony Square. The memorial wall displayed the names of all who had died, carved in black stone that would last forever. Families came here daily to remember their lost loved ones. A group of young alien diplomats visited the colony as part of a cultural exchange program. They had heard stories about the human response to the attack, but wanted to understand it better. Is it true Thathamans never forgive? One of them asked Colonel Morrison. Jake looked at the memorial wall, reading the familiar Nemes Maria Santos, who loved to draw spaceships. John Carter, the retired teacher. Amy Chun, who had delivered so many babies. We forgive, he said finally, but we never forget, and we never let anyone hurt our people without facing justice. Another young diplomat raised her hand. But the war lasted almost a year. Your entire civilization was mobilized. Wouldn't it have been easier to just accept their surrender? Jack turned to face the group of young aliens. His expression was patient, but firm. You didn't understand, he said. This wasn't about what was easy. It was about what was right. When someone attacks your family, you don't calculate costs or weigh convenience. You do whatever it takes to make sure it never happens again. He pointed to the memorial wall. Every name on that wall represents a mean's child, parent, friend, or spouse. They died because Admiral Crix thought humans were weak. He thought we would calculate the odds and decide revenge wasn't worth the cost. He was wrong. Wouldn't think like that. When you hurt our people, the cost Doesn't matter the time, doesn't matter the distance, doesn't matter, we will find you, and we will make sure justice is served. The young diplomats exchanged glances. They were beginning to understand why the human response had shocked the galaxy. What if it happens again? One asked quietly. Jake's smile held no warmth. Then whoever does it will learn the same lesson, Admiral. Crix learned humans are peaceful. Humans are reasonable. Humans prefer to solve problems with words rather than weapons. He paused, looking up at the stars visible in the afternoon sky. But humans never ever let anyone hurt their families and walk away. The lesson was learned in the years that followed. The galaxy became a more peaceful place, not because humans were feared, but because everyone understood the consequences of threatening those they protected. Fueling had been ignored once, it would not be ignored again.